Welcome back to Real Talk, the show where we sit down with real investors doing real deals and uncover what's actually happening in today's market. Today, I'm joined by Devon, an investor operating in the western suburbs of Cleveland, primarily in Lorain County. So, Devon's journey is a little different from a typical wholesaler path. He started in as buy and hold, built out his own construction team, and learned wholesaling as a tool along the way rather than the end goal. So he's been in the real estate for almost 4 years, focusing on long-term ownership, value-add renovations, and also building systems that actually support growth. So for anyone who does not know you yet, Devon, can you give us a quick intro about who you are, maybe how exactly you started in the real estate game?
Hey guys, my name's Devon McFeeters. So I kind of grew up with roots in construction. Since I was like 11 or 12 years old, my uncle had a renovation company. He focused on kitchens and baths. And since I was a young man, I would be in the basement carrying debris up the stairs, basically learning how to hang cabinets and drywall, doing little bits and pieces. And that all kind of helped me to take the dive into my first project because I had seen a lot of things already. And that kind of gave me an advantage having a contractor roll the decks off rip. So I had basically a lot of older people in the trades that were skilled. And then I was able to kind of use some of my friends and people that I knew that were my age and put them together. So my best trait and skill was basically putting people in place to be successful or to get the end goal completed quickly.
Amazing.
So I went to college for something totally different. I kind of bought my first deal with a couple friends. We put together some money and we actually bought 5 acres out in Joshua Tree, California for a very low price. There was some cabins on there and there was no power or solar or anything. We dug a septic system and we basically built these cabins by hand with some power tools that we charged in our trucks, and we poured some concrete pads, got solar out there, and we ended up with 7 units. I had 5 yurts and 2 cabins, and they were on Airbnb, and that was our first deal. Me and a couple friends building something in the desert turned into something a lot more.
Nice. And do you still have ownership over these Airbnbs in Joshua Tree?
I actually just sold them this summer, but yeah, we maintained them for 3 years. They did well. The first 3 months of operation, it made $25,000 actually. So that was cool. It was like $8,000 a month. And I think we were all in at 140-ish for everything. So maintaining it out there in California, being in Ohio, along with the weather and a lot of issues, it wasn't the best thing, but it gave me confidence to take on massive projects. So I've done everything from full foundation rebuilds to rebuilding a 6,000 square foot house from the ground up. And that's everything: siding, roof, windows, HVAC, electrical, fine finishes. That house took me a long time that I'm talking about, and that's going to be hitting the market soon. And it's probably my biggest accomplishment to date. But yeah, so I just started buying the houses that nobody else wanted, basically. The ones with messed up foundations and sewer lines and like very heavy duty repairs. I found a niche in heavy construction because there's a lot less competition. People don't like to deal with the headache and the costs, but when you have an in-house team with specializing in foundations, basically, it makes my job a lot easier.
Amazing. And it seems like you directly went with the heavy building, right? Like basically renovating the entire houses and everything. So what exactly was your early background? Like, did you used to happen to have any construction experience or any experience in the same space before? Like way before you got fully into this space?
Yeah, like I said, just with my uncle when I was young, but I wouldn't say like I had super large amounts of experience or anything. It was more so I just kind of figure things out as I went, and I just know the right people in place to help me with these problems. So I guess it just started out by taking on very large projects off rip. You're just forced to sink or swim. And I haven't really had too much experience losing big money in a deal yet, but I have lost money in a deal as well. Just my first one, just like most people do. I ended up not even selling my California place for what I had into it because the market changed out there. There was a lot of damage, like a lot of things happened. So my first deal worked out initially. I held it just to keep making money. And I actually sold it for a loss when you consider everything. But like I said, the knowledge I gained from that, I haven't lost since that. And I'm sure there'll be deals that I lose in, that happens to everybody, but it just taught me so much. And like I said, rebuilding a massive home like the one that I've just been doing for the last basically year. I flipped 10 houses last year while I was rebuilding the 5,000 square foot one. So if I would have just been able to focus solely on that, I probably would have been able to do it much quicker. But I was able to add 7 rental properties to my portfolio last year. I think I wholesaled 10 deals, and my average assignment fee was like 15 or 18,000. It was in the middle of that. So those are mostly from organic leads as well. Like I said, people know me in the town. I'll make a Facebook post here and there, and people will basically connect me with a distressed seller. So why I actually picked Closer Control to help expand my business was I knew that you guys had connections to the right people to help me run and manage my ads because I don't really have the time to do all of that. And I plan to actually blow out my marketing this year because I haven't really marketed. I've grown my business organically and it's done well for me, but that's not the name of the game. You can only scale so far doing that.
Exactly. So obviously it seems like you have doing pretty well, especially when it comes to the fix and flip side. So at what point did wholesaling enter the picture for you? Like why did it make sense as a part of your business instead of just sticking just strictly to the buy and hold?
You're just leaving money on the table because not every deal meets buy and hold requirements. There's been times where I've actually focused. A lot of my wholesale deals were seller carryback deals where they would basically hold the loan and I would pay their mortgage and maybe give them a little bit of money on a deposit to help facilitate them to move or whatever. But out of my 10 wholesale deals, I think 5 of them were like that. And that's why my assignment fee, my average fee was so much higher because I could make significantly more money like that and have less money out of pocket. But wholesaling is a tool basically. And if I use the profit that I'm making to continue my operations, it helps alleviate some of the cash flow issues that you have when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on renovations and buying houses every year. So sometimes wholesaling just offsets that, and it's something that's actually scalable. It's a lot easier to put yourself in position with the right marketing and the right systems to be able to expand a business to where I don't have to be boots on the ground. I don't have to be managing my jobs. And like, that's one thing that I'm doing with my fix and flip business is I'm basically actively training a project manager so I can step away and basically scale my business completely.
Nice. And obviously, I know you do a lot of your construction in-house, but how exactly does that change the way you analyze deals? Let's say compared to other investors who just want to outsource all of these things to a contractor.
I really have a significant advantage versus a lot of those type of investors because not only do I control the quality of my construction and I know that everything's getting done above and beyond, so I don't have callbacks, I don't have issues with my rentals, I don't get in trouble on my flips, but I can start construction immediately. I can close tomorrow and have guys there starting construction. So it's not even that the overhead and the cost is saved so much because there's some people that I pay a large amount of money and they're worth it. Or would you rather go and use somebody that is a half off contractor that you're going to just have to fix the work and do it twice? Or are you going to pay the right guy, the right price? And as far as underwriting, I know the costs of what everything costs, right? If I'm going to sub it out or if it's in-house, and that just gives me an edge because I can underwrite my deals a lot more correctly. I leave myself a little bit of space with contingencies. And like I said, just having a very large contractor Rolodex is where I've been able to get ahead of the curve.
Nice. So obviously, given where the interest rates are, right? So the construction cost, the inventory cost and everything, like how are you deciding whether a deal becomes a rental, a flip, or even a wholesale? Like what's the filter you're using for that?
I actually think at this point I'm kind of transitioning with my flips. I don't really mind if there's foundation work but I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do full gut rehabs really anymore. I'm not trying to destroy drywall and redo electrical. I don't want to anything to do with HVAC. If I have to rebuild foundations or walls or waterproof or something like that, that's my niche, something that I want to do because like I said, I have controlled costs that are
Yeah.
much lower than most people because I have access to heavy equipment and all of that. So my own personal flips, whether they're rentals or flips, I don't really want to be in there for more than 3 or 4 weeks. It doesn't make sense to me. So I just closed on one like last week in Avon Lake, and I basically can have the whole thing done. New kitchen, bath, paint, ceiling repairs, all the full cosmetics in like
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And there's a $60,000 or $70,000 spread. My time is best served doing a deal like that, right? Rather than doing a full gut rehab that takes 4 months to make 40 grand.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't touch a flip unless I can profit at least 40,000 on it. And like I said, that time versus money thing is big with me. So I'm kind of staying away from super large projects,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm looking for niche things. And like, I don't mind doing a full gut rehab, but I'm gonna need the money that I'm making on the back end to make sense.
Got it. And
So with
nice.
wholesaling, with what I picked to wholesale, sometimes, like I said, my whole goal with my business is to get direct seller leads for me to buy them, not to wholesale them,
Mm-hmm.
but to be an end buyer. And whenever I'm at my capacity of buying, I will wholesale those deals. So they need to make sense for the end buyer to actually make money. And the thing that makes me a decent wholesaler is the fact that I know how to underwrite these deals so well. So whenever I'm sending out deals, they're not looking like those rehab numbers are not accurate. They're actually accurate. So it's a lot easier to have some traction moving deals that way.
Nice. And the part where you mentioned about the time, right? Let's say when you buy and hold, obviously there is a time period where you get to sell that house again, or let's say get to sell that property again. So obviously, from one standpoint, people might think, you know what, let me just get the place first, and when the right price comes in, I can just sell it. But obviously, that approach does not always works out right. And for a lot of new investors, they underestimate about owning and let's say managing these long-term rentals. So, what is your experience like, or maybe what do you think a lot of people make mistake in this area?
I think that long-term rentals, it's a very hard game when you first get in there, especially if you're not buying your house cash and you're not exposed to the full cash flow. So say you have 3 rentals and you're making 300 or 400 bucks off each one. If one tenant doesn't pay, you're still in the red, right?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, when you have 6, 7, 8 units in one rental, or one tenant doesn't pay, all of a sudden it kind of makes up for it, right? And there's a cushion there, and it becomes
Mm-hmm.
easier. You could use your cash flow to start buying more properties, and then, like I said, use wholesaling and flipping to get active income to just continue to build your pot. But it's definitely a struggle. I think that anybody who says it's easy is lying. The first couple years of buying rentals, especially if you have a job or this is your primary income, it's tough, right? You're bootstrapping your own business.
Yeah.
You're going to have to put everything back into your business for several years before you're even successful. And if you don't do that, it's going to stunt your growth.
Amazing. I
Everybody
think,
who says tenants are annoying, I mean, they can be, but you're providing them a home, right? That they're raising their family, that they're creating memories in. And if you're good to people, they're typically good to you back. There's some horror stories. You might have 1 or 2 bad tenants here and there. Some people pay a
mhm,
little bit late. I don't really have a problem collecting rent. I have some stragglers, but overall, my tenants are all pretty good. But I also
mhm.
try to treat them as an extension of me. So I don't let repairs go by. I try to give them something that I'm proud of, right? So that they can have
Yeah.
some pride where they live as well.
Amazing. So, over your years of experience, do you have any stories where you can maybe share with the audience regarding a deal maybe gone wrong, or maybe something funny which you come across?
Oh man, I mean, deals have slipped through my fingers a couple times, but overall, I feel like some of the ones that have like actually not panned out have been for the better and maybe have avoided me a loss. I was told, I don't even remember who told me this, but it was several years ago, that sometimes the best deal is no deal, because
Hmm.
sometimes whenever you're in that position where you feel like you need to find a deal, and you rush, then you make a big mistake, right? And it could
Yeah.
affect a lot of things. It could affect your next deal, or say if you rush into something better might pop up soon. And just being patient is something that I learned. Like, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. You can't expect your contractors to do full gut rehabs in a month usually, unless you have a very specialized and skilled team. I think one of the most annoying things that I've ever dealt with, honestly, was when I was trying to get a deal and I had a whole big plan to add a bathroom and a bedroom in Avon in a very high end area, and I was using a hard money loan, and it didn't appraise correctly, and it was totally wrong, but it blew my deal up and there was nothing I could do. So that kind of made me want to stack cash up to use cash. But then I started to use cash on my flips, and it started to really hurt my cash flow. And I would always be running into my emergency fund, and I wouldn't have access to get another deal. So like my first year flipping, I used a lot of loans. My second year flipping, I used all cash, really. And then like my third year, it was kind of a combination of the both, right? And like I'm figuring out the best leverage points. And that's with rentals too. I'm not one of those guys that tries to burr out all my equity. I don't try to max leverage myself. I try to max cash flow myself in the beginning. And eventually I'll probably liquidate all my stuff and I will buy commercial buildings or apartments. The thing that separates me from a lot of investors is that I have a full service team of contractors, basically, or guys in house, and I've been preparing to build. So I want to build rentals. I want to build and keep it. I don't really want to build and flip. I want to build larger multifamily buildings and stuff like that. So that's where my trajectory is headed to, and I will use wholesaling to actually fund that.
Yeah, amazing. I think you have everything all figured out. I think you have like a proper blueprint or easily for the next 5 years on where exactly you want to go. And that's pretty amazing. And I think that's something which I have not noticed, especially when I talk to a lot of wholesalers. Like they might have a next 1 year blueprint ready, but for you, I think you got everything all figured out. So my next, basically my one last question would be, let's say for someone who wants to get into real estate today, especially in your area of expertise, which is a buy and hold, what's the one thing they should focus on first that most people end up overlooking?
So the area that I am working in, it's just so different. So like on the western part by like Lorain, Sandusky, that type of area, Elyria, you have a lot of cash flow machines, right? You have properties that are not going to be appreciating at a very high level, but they're going to be cash flowing. Your tenant base isn't the best. They're CD neighborhoods, right? So if you're buying those, you're going to be buying for cash flow. I feel like to start out, it's different for everybody's strategy because people who have jobs and people who are flipping houses, and like every single person will have a different strategy depending on where they're starting, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like if you have a 9 to 5, I think that the best strategy is to probably try to flip one house a year and maybe buy one rental property with the profits, because then the capital gains get offset completely by your purchase, essentially, and you're able to grow cash flow. So you're adding active income, right? That is the formula to be able to gain more real estate and eventually buy yourself out of having a job. So if you're already a full-time flipper and investor, I think that wholesaling and getting into wholesaling is a great avenue to be able to fund your first deal, whether it's a flip or a buy and hold, if you don't have a job. But again, you can implement both strategies together regardless. So like, I feel like when you're first building and you're first buying assets, you should probably try to put some money in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
And then once you have some money in your pocket, you should probably buy some cash flowing assets and then let your cash flow build, and all of a sudden things compound. And once you have a couple properties, it becomes easier to buy another one. It becomes easier to walk into a flip and know, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, right? And like my first flip that wasn't in Joshua Tree, it took me 9 months and I probably profited 30 grand, 25. If you're doing that full time as a job, that's not a survivable thing, right?
Yeah.
But I bought that house and I immediately bought 2 others. So I put myself into the fire immediately, right? Because I knew where my margins were and I knew that it wasn't going to be enough. So sometimes the best advice is just to jump into the fire with nobody to save you, man. And like failing is okay, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that never actually take that dive. They've never failed. They've never felt a deal blow up in their face. They've never lost money. And when you become insensitive to that, to the emotional part of it, right? Nobody wants to lose money.
Yeah.
But what happens when you lose money, something happens psychologically where you just try to chase it, right? And you try to get it back as quickly as you can, and then you make impulsive decisions. And a lot of the time that ship, it sinks, man. It sinks.
That's
So,
true. No, I think I think that's like one of the best advices. Plus, on top of that, I think you laid out like a proper plan on how exactly you can build your portfolio, especially in buying as well as holding houses, and then also supplemented with some additional income on the side, whether if you have a 9 to 5 job or if you want to just get it through wholesaling. So, Devin, I think you have like a wonderful story, plus you have a ton of experience. So, Devin, obviously, the people who want to follow your journey, could you maybe share your Instagram so that they know how to get in touch with you?
yeah, it's just Dev, DEV, and then McFeeters, MCFEATERS. And then just give me a follow and go ahead and reach out if you guys have any questions.
Amazing. Well, Devin, I think this was an amazing session, a valuable session, as well as so much of value and content which is being added over here. And to anyone who's watching who really want to get into the wholesaling game, we want to understand more about real estate, watch the Real Talk episode. You get to understand the journey of each and every single client on what exactly is happening in day-to-day life in the market. So once again, Devin, thank you so much for hopping on the session. Tune in next week where we're going to be coming up with new episodes, new client, as well as new wholesaling journey. Till then, thank you so much. See you soon.
Yep. Good night, guys.